There are sounds I can't listen to anymore. The zipping noise of corduroy rubbing together is one. Just last week, a guy in a crowded grocery store aisle brushed past me, and the sound his pants made, that soft, rhythmic zz-zip, sent a jolt through me so sharp I dropped my basket. Milk and eggs shattered on the linoleum. I didn't even apologize, I just turned and fled, gasping for air in the parking lot. Then there's the music. The first three chords of any song by the Wandering Echoes. Omar and I saw them live the summer before all this. We thought they were geniuses. Now hearing their music feels like ice water being poured down my spine. It all goes back to the jacket. Omar's jacket. The bullet that tore through my shoulder and collapsed my lung wasn't meant for me. I know this for a fact, and that knowledge is a poison I drink every morning. It was meant for Omar, or to be more precise, it was meant for his ugly thrift store mustard yellow corduroy jacket. It was an obnoxious piece of clothing, the kind of thing that smells faintly of mothballs no matter how many times you wash it. It was also the only thing he owned with that faded Wandering Echoes patch sewn onto the sleeve, a patch we bought together at that concert. My name is Sam. 18 months ago, a kid named Lucas walked into our college library and started shooting. He had a list. I've seen the damn thing. The police showed it to my parents during the investigation, as if a piece of paper could somehow make sense of the carnage. My name isn't on it. I didn't even know Lucas. But Omar's name was, right there number 4 between two girls from his chemistry class. And I was the one who got shot because I was wearing his jacket. It's a special kind of hell, to survive something you were never supposed to be a part of. People tell me I'm brave. They look at the scar peeking out from my collar with this awful, pitying reverence. They don't understand. I wasn't brave, I was just clumsy. I feel like a fraud, an imposter who stole someone else's tragedy. I'm living in the aftermath of a story that isn't mine, and the wrongness of it is a physical weight. It sits on my chest, heavy and constant, a ghost of the bullet that should have been for someone else. All because I spilled a goddamn latte on my own hoodie that morning, that's it. A loose lid on a paper cup, that's the hinge my entire life swung on. My therapist says I need to walk through it, not around it but through it. She says giving the memory a narrative will take away its power. It's bullshit, but I'm paying her a lot of money, so I try. That morning was aggressively normal. It was a Tuesday. I had a midterm in political science that I hadn't studied for, so I was mainlining caffeine in the library cafe. Omar was there, cramming for the same test. The table was one of those wobbly ones, and when I reached for a sugar packet, my elbow knocked my giant latte. It went everywhere. A tidal wave of lukewarm, milky coffee all over my gray hoodie. I remember being so annoyed, just this stupid, trivial frustration. Seriously, I muttered, standing up as coffee dripped onto the floor. Omar laughed. He had this big, booming laugh. Nice one, dude. I can't go into the exam smelling like a Starbucks mop, I said. I was shivering a little, the wet fabric clinging to my skin. His jacket was slung over the back of his chair, that yellow jacket. Here, he said, tossing it to me without even looking up from his textbook. Just don't get blood on it. He was making a joke about the midterm. A stupid throwaway joke. I can't stop hearing it in my head. Don't get blood on it. I pulled it on. The corduroy was soft, worn in. It smelled like him, that mix of laundry detergent and faint, spicy deodorant. I remember fiddling with the Wandering Echoes patch on the sleeve. We were supposed to go see them again over winter break. We found a table on the 3rd floor in the quiet section. The library was peaceful. The smell of old paper, the gentle rustle of turning pages, the soft clicks of keyboards. We sat there for maybe an hour, not really talking, just existing in that comfortable silence friends have. Then Omar's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, sighed, and started packing his bag. Gotta go, he said, shoving his laptop in, stomach staging a rebellion. Library coffee. Traitor, I mumbled, not looking up from my notes. Be right back, don't fail without me. Those were the last words he said to me before everything went to hell. I don't remember seeing Lucas enter, I just remember the sound. It wasn't a loud bang like in the movies. It was a sharp, flat crack, like a wooden plank snapping in half. I looked up, annoyed, thinking someone had dropped a heavy book. Then came another crack, and a girl a few tables away screamed. It wasn't a scream of surprise. It was a raw, primal sound of pure terror. That's when the world dissolved into chaos. It was just noise and movement. The rhythmic cracking, the shattering of glass from the big windows overlooking the quad, the endless screaming. I didn't think, I just did what everyone else was doing. I dropped to the floor and crawled under the heavy oak table. My head was buzzing, it didn't feel real. Then I felt a punch. A massive, hot, violent punch to my left shoulder that threw me against the table leg. I remember the impact of my head hitting the wood more than the bullet itself. For a second there was no pain, just a profound, ringing silence in my ears and a sudden, overwhelming warmth spreading across my back. I remember thinking, did I get coffee on this jacket too? Then I looked down and saw the sleeve, Omar's sleeve, turning a dark, syrupy red. My red edit, wow, okay, didn't expect this to get so much attention. My inbox is a mess. A lot of you are asking the same questions, so I'll just answer them here. First, and this is the big one everyone's asking, Omar is fine, he's alive. He wasn't even in the library when it happened. That text he got, he really did have to use the bathroom. He was in a stall in the student union building across the quad when the first shots were fired. He heard the sirens before he even knew what was happening. So yes, he's physically okay. I guess that's the part that really messes with my head. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, decided that a bout of indigestion was enough to save his life. Second, a lot of people are saying Lucas must have been aiming for someone else, that the jacket is just a coincidence. It's not. The police confirmed it. Lucas was on the other side of the main reading room, almost 50 yards away. All the witnesses who saw him said he was methodical. He'd raise the rifle, pause, and then fire. He wasn't just spraying bullets randomly. From that distance, with dozens of people ducking and running, you can't really see faces, but you can see a jacket. A bright, ugly, mustard yellow jacket with a distinctive band patch on the sleeve. A jacket he knew. A jacket he hated because he associated it with Omar. It was the target. I was just the guy inside it. The guilt, the real, soul-crushing guilt, didn't set in at the hospital. I was too high on morphine and relief for that, floating in a medicated haze where the only thing that mattered was the next press of the button for pain relief. The guilt came later in the quiet, sterile weeks of recovery at my parents' house. It started as a small, nagging thought when my mom, her eyes red-rimmed from crying, first told me Omar was completely unharmed. "Isn't that a miracle, Sam?" she'd whispered, and I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. It wasn't a miracle, it was a clerical error. That knot grew into a monster that took over every waking moment. The thought was simple: I was alive because Omar went to the bathroom. He was alive because I spilled my coffee. Every link in that chain of stupid, mundane events felt like a personal betrayal. Our friendship, which had been the most stable thing in my life since freshman year, just evaporated. It didn't end in a fight, it was worse. It died of awkwardness and the unbearable weight of things left unsaid. He came to visit me a few times. The first time, he brought me a copy of a video game we'd been planning to play together. He stood in the doorway of my room, shifting his weight, holding the game out like a shield. His eyes couldn't look at the sling my arm was in. They darted around the room, landing on anything but me. "Hey man," he'd said, his voice too quiet. "Hey," I'd replied. We tried to talk about the game, we tried to make the old jokes, but the words felt hollow, like echoes in a tomb. The friendship was dead and we were just two ghosts haunting its corpse. The subsequent visits got shorter, the silences got longer. Finally, during what would be his last visit, he tried to apologize. "Sam, about the jacket, I'm so sorry." My blood ran cold. The words were a match to a fuse. "Sorry for what?" I asked, my voice dangerously flat. "For not being in it." The look on his face, it was like I'd physically struck him. He flinched, a deep, wounded shame washing over his features. He didn't say anything else. He just gave a little nod, turned, and left. I watched him go, feeling this toxic mix of triumph and self-loathing. He was feeling guilty for lending me the jacket, and I was feeling guilty for taking the bullet. We were trapped in this perfect, miserable feedback loop of shame. We were poisoning each other. After that, the visits stopped. The texts stopped. I dropped out for the semester and cut off nearly everyone. My whole world shrank to the four walls of my bedroom. I'd spend hours online reading everything I could find about Lucas, about the other victims, about Omar. My laptop became a shrine to the tragedy. I found an old university forum thread where students were piecing things together. Lucas had been in a freshman seminar with Omar and apparently developed some kind of obsessive grudge over a group project. A fucking group project. All this death and pain because of a bad grade on a PowerPoint presentation. The sheer idiotic triviality of it was almost worse than the violence. It meant there was no reason, no grand design, just chaos. I'd lie in bed at night replaying the coffee spill, the wobble of the table, the way Omar tossed me the jacket. The what-ifs became my religion and the guilt was my god. I was a survivor, but I wasn't living. I was just a prisoner in the empty cell that should have been his. For months, my life was a flat line. Wake up, stare at the ceiling, maybe eat something, stare at a screen, go back to sleep. My parents tried to be supportive, but their worried glances felt like accusations. I was a broken thing in their house. The only time I left was for therapy, which felt useless, and grocery shopping, which felt like a monumental expedition into enemy territory. It was during one of these expeditions that it happened. I was in the cereal aisle of a supermarket about 20 minutes from my house. a place I chose specifically because I knew no one from college would be there. I was staring at a wall of brightly colored boxes, trying to remember if I liked Frosted Flakes or not when I heard my name. Sam Carter. The voice was familiar. I turned, my heart hammering against my ribs, my body instantly tensing for a threat. It was Mrs. Hassan, Omar's mom. She looked older than I remembered, her smile lines deeper, etched with a sadness that hadn't been there before. She was holding a carton of orange juice. For a second, I thought about pretending I wasn't me, just mumbling sorry, wrong person and walking away, but I was frozen. "Oh, honey, it's so good to see you," she said, her voice warm, but her eyes were full of a painful sympathy that made my skin crawl. She put a hand on my good arm, her touch gentle. "How are you, really?" "I'm okay, Mrs. Hassan, getting by," I lied. The words tasted like ash. We stood there in the fluorescent glare of the supermarket, making the most excruciating small talk of my life. She asked about my recovery. I asked about her husband's catering business. It was a dance of avoiding the one subject that hung in the air between us, her son. Finally, she was the one who broke the unspoken rule. "Omar, he misses you, you know," she said softly. "He just doesn't know how to," she trailed off, shaking her head. "This whole thing has been so hard on him, too." I just nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I felt a surge of the old, bitter anger, hard on him. As if sensing my thoughts, she rushed to explain. "He feels such a guilt, he replays it all the time. He told me, that morning he almost didn't even wear that jacket." I looked at her, confused. "What?" "Yes," she said, her expression wistful, lost in the memory. "His girlfriend Dana, she told him it was going to be too warm for corduroy. They had a silly little argument about it before he left. He was being stubborn, wanted to wear it because of that band patch he loves so much. He almost left it at home." She gave a sad little laugh. "It's funny, isn't it, the little things, if he just listened to her." She kept talking, but I couldn't hear her anymore. Her words were a dull roar in my ears. A silly little argument, a disagreement about the weather. It wasn't just the coffee, it wasn't just the bathroom break. It was a whole chain of mundane, meaningless events. A string of stupid luck, both good and bad, all tangled together. The neat, tidy narrative I had built in my head, the story where I was the direct substitute for Omar, the sacrificial lamb, shattered. It wasn't a clean swap, it was a chaotic mess of 100 different variables, and that somehow was so much worse. Update: I'm sitting in my car in the supermarket parking lot. I don't think I even paid for my groceries, I just walked out. I've been here for maybe an hour just watching people come and go. I can't stop crying. It's not a sad cry. I don't even know what it is. It's this wrenching, ugly, gasping thing that's clawing its way out of my chest. Thank you for all the messages. I don't know why I'm telling all of you this. Strangers, I guess it's because you're not involved. You're not my parents or my therapist or Omar's mom. You just listen, so thank you. Hearing that story about Omar and his girlfriend arguing about the weather, it broke something in me. For 18 months, I've been carrying this story around. A simple, terrible story. I took Omar's bullet. It had a certain logic to it, a kind of dark poetry. It was my cross to bear. But it's not true, it was never that simple. My story wasn't just my story. It was tied to a spilled coffee, a wobbly table, a sensitive stomach, a weather forecast, a stubborn fashion choice. It wasn't a neat equation where I was X and he was Y, it was chaos theory. A butterfly flapping its wings in the form of a stupid argument about a jacket. It doesn't make the pain go away, but it changes the shape of it. The guilt is still there, but it's not as sharp, it's more confusing now, more pointless, and maybe that's the first step. Realizing none of it had a point, I drove home from the supermarket on autopilot. I walked into my house, went up to my room, and for the first time in over a year, I opened my closet and pulled out the box from the evidence department. It had been sealed since my parents brought it home. Inside, underneath some old textbooks and clothes I'll never wear again, was the jacket. I took it out. It was clean now, scrubbed of my blood by some forensic technician, but the damage was still there. A ragged, ugly hole in the left shoulder, the corduroy fibers permanently frayed. The mustard yellow color seemed duller under my bedroom light, drained of its significance. It didn't look like an instrument of fate anymore. It just looked like a sad, old jacket. I sat on my bed, holding it for a long time. The memory of that day is still a wound, and I don't think it will ever fully heal. It will scar over. I can trace the path of the bullet on my own skin, a puckered, discolored trail that will be with me forever. It's a permanent part of my topography now. The conversation with Mrs. Hassan didn't give me closure. I hate that word. There's no closing the door on something like this. What it gave me was a release from the burden of a false narrative. I wasn't a substitute. I wasn't a hero or a victim in someone else's story. I was just there. I was the random variable in a chaotic equation that had no right answer. The bullet didn't have a name on it, it had a direction, and I just happened to be standing in its path. My friendship with Omar is probably gone for good. Maybe that's a casualty that can never be recovered. Some things break in a way that you can't glue them back together. Maybe the best we can hope for is to sweep up the pieces so we don't keep cutting ourselves on them. I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. Maybe I'll call the university and talk about re-enrolling. Maybe I'll just sit here. But for the first time, the silence in my room doesn't feel like it's screaming at me. I folded the jacket, the mustard yellow corduroy, the faded band patch, the hole. I put it back in the box, but I didn't seal it this time. I just closed the flaps. It's not a relic anymore. It's not a curse. It's just a piece of clothing that I wore on the worst day of my life, and I survived. That's the only part of the story that's actually mine.